Hi, I'm Mayor Kim Carr from the City of Huntington Beach. I'd like to thank you for joining us this evening to talk about COVID-19 and everything that we're doing here in the city to help our small businesses. We've been hosting these town halls every first and third Wednesday of the month for the past couple of months, and we've been focusing a lot on COVID-19, the vaccines, the different tiers, how you can get a vaccine. But tonight we're going to pivot a little bit and talk about small businesses and how the city is working to help our small businesses and stay afloat during this pandemic. And we have a very exciting program tonight to focus on a small business micro grant program that we are getting ready to kick off here. So as you know, the city's been doing a lot of different things to help our small businesses here in the community. And this is just one more tool in the toolbox that we have to help people be able to keep their doors open during this pandemic. So tonight we have a lot of different things that we want to talk about, and we have a short amount of time to do it. So I want to get things going right away. We're going to talk a little bit about COVID-19 and talk about the reopening. As most people know, we're in the red tier right now and what that means for small businesses, and talk a little bit about the vaccines, how you can get your vaccine, because that is also all part of the opening process. We're going to then transition into the COVID-19 Small Business Micro Grant Program, and small businesses will learn how they can apply for those programs and how we will be distributing those funds over the next couple of months. And then we'll also have a little Q&A at the end. If you have any questions, if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, use the chat feature. Go ahead and type in your question, and we have people monitoring those, and then at the end, we'll be able to answer those questions. And then as always, I like to tell people, go on to hbready.com for just about anything that's COVID related. So tonight there's two different areas I'd like you to look at: hbready.com/biz-grants and hbready.com/reopen. So I'm going to kick it off and introduce our panelists here this evening. We have our city manager, Oliver Chi, as always, to give us a COVID-19 update and how we are working as a city to progress through that. We also have a very special guest tonight, our Chief Financial Officer, Dale Bolson. And then also we have tonight the Director of National Development Council, Diana Sasser. And so I just want to give a quick bio about Diana. Diana is the field director for the National Development Council on the Regional West team, and she's been with NDC for 9 years. As a field director, Diana has worked with various local communities on federal, state, and local programs to evaluate developer requests, assist with low-income programming, assist with brownfield projects, establish small business loan programs, guidelines and underlining for small business loans, and a lot of other things. She wears many, many hats. And a lot of people may be wondering, well, who's NDC and who is the city partnering with? So I want to give you just a quick background on who the National Development Council is. NDC works and they focus on homes, jobs, and community. They were founded as a national nonprofit in 1969. The NDC has worked for over 50 years of fulfilling its mission to increase the flow of capital for investment in low-income communities. NDC directs capital to support the development and preservation of affordable housing, the creation of jobs through training and small business lending, and the advancement of livable communities through investment in social infrastructure. So we're very, very happy to be partnering with NDC on this program to help our small business community. But first, we're going to talk a little bit about where we are with COVID-19 and everything that we've been doing to help the small businesses. And as we know, for some businesses, they were just able to reopen a couple of days ago, especially if you were a gym. You've been closed for a very long time. And so we know that small businesses are the heart and soul of our community. And we here at the city have been coming up with creative ways to make sure that they can stay open. So I'm going to allow Mr. Oliver Chi to talk a little bit about where we are with COVID-19 and what we can look forward, because there's definitely a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's here sooner than we've been waiting a long time for this. And so now there's a lot of hope. And why don't you give us an update on what's going on with COVID-19?
Thank you so much, Kim. Really appreciate that introduction and appreciate your leadership on trying to make sure that we're staying up to date on the latest with COVID-19 and making sure that all of us in Huntington Beach know exactly what's going on. And like you said, Kim, there's lots of really terrific news on the COVID-19 front. The last month, we've seen the data trends move in an incredibly positive way. Right now, the number of new COVID-19 cases in the U.S. that we're seeing, it's averaging about 55,000 new cases a day. That number is still high, but when you compare it to where we were in the most recent winter surge, in early January, we were seeing over 250,000 new cases per day. So we've seen an incredibly rapid descent in terms of the number of cases, the reduction in the new number of cases we're seeing from COVID. And that is part of the good news that we're seeing. More good news here in Orange County. Did you know that we've passed the 1 million person vaccinated mark now here in Orange County? That really is going to be the pathway forward. Once we get 70 to 80% of our population vaccinated, that herd immunity kicks in. And at that point, we can really start saying goodbye to the masks and goodbye to COVID, that we can get through this last year that's been incredibly challenging for so many people.
Well, so Oliver, I'm going to interrupt you for a little second, because that is pretty significant that we're at 33% because the state is at, 25?
Yes, we're doing a terrific job here in Orange County getting folks vaccinated. Some of it is related to the nature of Orange County in phase 1A and phase 1B of the state's vaccination system. There were a higher number of healthcare professionals that were eligible for vaccination. That put Orange County, we have a higher proportion of healthcare workers here in Orange County than most comparable counties. That's helped boost our numbers. But really, I think as much as it's been frustrating in terms of how to get a vaccine shot, I think what the data is showing is Orange County is doing a really terrific job, comparatively speaking, to the rest of the state. And really in Huntington, we've been doing a lot of terrific work, Kim, that you've been a part of in getting some of the mobile pods out to our different communities. I think, though, Kim, you'd agree with this too. There's a cautionary tale. If folks are following the news in Europe, we've seen an acceleration in the number of cases. In fact, I was just reading today that France is going to lock down again this weekend, and Europe is seeing a surge in new case counts. So as tremendous as the information is here in the States, as great as the news is in California and Orange County, we really do need to continue to maintain safety protocols, follow CDC guidelines. And Kim, you have that snappy saying.
3 W's, right?
3 W's, right, Kim? Wear a mask.
Wear a mask. Watch your distance, right?
And wash your hands.
Wash your hands. Watch your distance. I know and everybody feels that COVID fatigue, which everybody feels it, and everybody's excited about getting the vaccine, not having to wear a mask anymore. But as you said, it's sort of a mixed message in that we all want to move forward, but we all need to be cognizant that there are other areas that are spiking. So
but we are getting closer. All of the data trends again are pointing in the right direction. This next slide that we have up shows the most recent data for the situation in California. Cases, deaths, testing, everything is down. And that's really good news. Vaccines being administered is up. Those are all trending in the right direction. And as optimistic as the future looks at this point, I think it's also a tremendously, the numbers are just, when you think about the scale of how much death we've seen here in California and across the country. We've had nearly 56,000 people die from COVID here in California, over 550,000 deaths across the U.S. It's been a tragic year, but again, there is hope and optimism on the future. As you flip into the next slide, you can see that most of California now has moved into what is called the red tier, the substantial tier. Today, over 80% of the folks living in the state of California have moved out of that widespread purple tier that we had been in. And Kim, you referenced it at the start. Gyms have been closed, movie theaters have been closed, dining inside restaurants has been closed. As you move into the red tier, those business restrictions have started to relax. And when you look, and that's really good news statewide. And when you look a little bit more closely at the situation in Orange County, just like our vaccination numbers are really, really strong and favorable when compared with the rest of the state, the local situation related to COVID is also incredibly optimistic and hopeful. Under the state's tiering system, there are 3 key metrics the state has been watching to determine which tier the county is allowed to be in. Those include the adjusted daily case rate, the test positivity rate, and the health equity testing positivity rate. Now, in those 3 metrics for Orange County, 2 of those metrics for us, the testing positivity rate and the health equity testing positivity rate, those have moved into the even less restrictive orange tier. The adjusted daily case rate is currently in the red tier. It's all a little bit confusing, but what that means is, and what the data is showing is, as quick as we've moved now into the red tier and as we've opened new business sectors, within the next 3 to 4 weeks, there's a lot of optimism. If our current trends hold, we continue getting vaccinated, continue to practice the 3 W's and stay safe, that we'll be moving into the orange tier, which will allow even more business reopenings to happen. And that all plays really well into, I think, the discussion we'll be having later tonight with Dale and with Diana about some of the business support that we're looking at. As we look at this next chart, as we move into the red tier, businesses are going to be able to start reopening. This all started happening this week, where retail capacity, malls and shopping centers were able to open now at 50% capacity. Previously, it was at 25%. Personal care, you can continue now to get haircuts and get your nails done. Museums, zoos, aquariums are open. This past weekend, took the kids to the Santa Ana Zoo. We can go see the animals again. Those are all really cool activities we haven't been able to do for a long time. Restaurants, churches, movie theaters now can reopen indoors with at 25% capacity. You can't quite go yet to Dave & Buster's, but again, in a couple of weeks, Family Entertainment Center should be open. Folks have set up a number of new ways to stay in shape during this COVID pandemic, but thankfully now gyms are going to be reopening. So all the new workout facilities folks have built in your garages or outdoor space that you've been using, you can continue to do that, but you'll also be able to get back into the gyms now. Breweries, wineries, distilleries are allowed to open outdoors right now, but as you move into the orange tier, indoor openings will be allowed. And for Orange County amusement parks, starting in April, amusement parks will be allowed to reopen at 15% capacity. I think Disney announced today they're going to look to reopen April 30th. So a lot of really terrific news here as we start to look at reopening our economy after this year of COVID that we've been in.
Well, that is really good news, because it seems like we are not very far from entering the orange tier with right. 2 out of the 3 metrics in the orange tier, and that third tier, or that third metric, really, really close. So as you said, it's all moving in that positive direction.
Absolutely. Well, and one of the ways, Kim, and really appreciate your leadership on this front, the way that we're going to get there really is, let's keep getting people vaccinated. And for the last couple of months, we've been a couple of times a month talking about everything vaccine related. And we move into the next slide. The vaccine distribution, again, in Orange County has been going really well. And I think, Kim, the thing we've been trying to reinforce for everyone, There are now 3 vaccine options that folks have access to here in the United States. And here's the really important point. All 3 of the vaccine options have been proven to be 100% effective, 100% effective at preventing hospitalization and death from COVID-19. So there's been a lot of talk recently about, which is the best vaccine. Should you get the Pfizer, the Moderna, the Johnson & Johnson? Consistently over and over, I think the recommendation that we've been making is get whichever vaccine is available to you now. All 3, again, vaccines have been shown to be 100% effective at preventing hospitalization and death from COVID-19. There's been some talk in various circles on social media and the news that the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines had a higher efficacy rate. Both of those vaccines have proven to be 94% effective at preventing any symptoms. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine was only shown to be 66% effective at preventing symptoms. The caveat to that, though, is that the efficacy rate doesn't equate to how effective the overall vaccine is at doing what the vaccines are supposed to do, which is prevent hospitalization and death. All 3 vaccines prevent hospitalization and death completely. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine, yes, some folks still got a cold after they got the vaccine shot from COVID. They had minor symptoms, but again, no serious symptoms arose. And all 3 vaccines do what we need, which is keep people safe from COVID, prevent death, prevent hospitalization. I'd also note too that the typical flu shots, some folks have tried to compare COVID to the flu. Well, the flu shot typically is 40 to 50% effective on a year-to-year basis, and we do get flu shots regularly. So all 3 vaccines are tremendous, and the vaccine information that we have really indicates if you have access to the vaccine, go get it as soon as you can. That has been, I think, one of the biggest frustrations, right, Kim, that we've heard. It feels like every single day you and I talk about a resident who's reached out and they haven't been able to access the vaccine. As you know, now the vaccine supply is absolutely ramping up based on all of the distribution schedules. What the federal government has said and what we're seeing now is that by the time we get to May of 2021, so in another month, anybody who wants a vaccine should be able to, at that point, sign up and get registered and get access to the shot. Right now, based on the limited supplies, there is a prioritization. There's a lot of nuance to everything. We have phases and folks who are eligible. The bottom line right now is if you're over age 65, if you work in the healthcare industry, if you work in any kind of educational setting, food service, agricultural, emergency services, or have a medical condition, you're eligible for the vaccine at this point. And in the coming weeks, in talking with the folks at the county, there's going to be additional loosening of those restrictions, and more segments of our population will be eligible. That's really good news. The thing that is still confusing, though, is great. If I'm eligible, how do I get a vaccine? And again, Kim, maybe you want to talk a little about this next slide, because really this was your idea that, hey, we've got a way to compile everything into one place so folks know how to register.
Well, it is confusing, and it was one of the questions that, you and I talk about this all the time, and you sit on the task force, and it was confusing even to me to figure out how do you get the vaccine once you become eligible. And so there are a myriad of ways that you can get the vaccine, whether it's through Othina or My Turn. And I would really recommend all of our residents sign up for both of those options. Even if you're not eligible right now, sign up, because Othina will let you know when you are eligible. But then there's also Ultimate, UCI, Memorial Care, Kaiser. And for some people that may not know, you don't have to be a Kaiser patient to get the vaccine from Kaiser. And then there's also all of the pharmacies, whether it's CVS or Walgreens or Rite Aid. So Oliver and I were talking about how do you collate all of this information. So on hbready.com/vaccine, we have all of the hyperlinks embedded into one site so that you don't have to Google all of these different places. You can go to one page and sign up for anything that you can find that's eligible. And as Oliver said, take the first vaccine that you can get, because there's a lot of different options. And I know some people may want to shop. They only want the Pfizer, they only want the Moderna. But the point is that we want to keep people safe. And all 3 vaccines have been shown to be safe and effective. So this is just a really easy thing for our residents to go to hbready.com/vaccine. And you can get all of the information and sign up for your vaccine and go about your business, which I know it can be confusing.
Mm-hmm. No, and I think if everyone will look to get the vaccine, and during the course of the next couple of months, practice the 3 W's, watch your distance, wash your hands, wear a mask, we will be able to get out of this. We'll get our economy reopened. We'll get back to sort of the pre-COVID type of lifestyle that we all are yearning to get back to. And Kim, I think as we move forward, COVID's impacted people dramatically. It's also impacted businesses dramatically. And I know the discussion on COVID support programs that you'll be leading, it's been something that's been helpful, and we're looking forward to continuing to helping people and businesses here moving ahead.
Yes, and we as a city, we've been doing all that we can to help and support our local businesses. And we know that going forward, businesses have changed. And we talk about this all the time at the council, post-pandemic, what that's going to look like. And we know that businesses have shifted and they've pivoted and they've transformed their businesses, and we want to help them weather any storm and keep them open, because one of the beautiful things about Huntington Beach is our local businesses. They really are the flavor of our city, and we just value them so much. And so it's been such a difficult time for our small businesses, but we have support programs available. And so now I'm going to ask our Chief Financial Officer to come on in and talk a little bit about all the different programs that the city has been providing since the beginning of COVID.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Carr. So good evening, everyone. I'm glad I was able to join you folks. I know it's been an extremely difficult year with the pandemic worldwide, but also I know more specifically with our local businesses here in HB. And over the past year, the city has been working diligently to provide relief programs to Huntington Beach businesses and the community. Here's a list of the programs that we were very proud to be able to stand up this past year, and I'll share briefly about each of these different programs. So first, in June of 2020, the city received $4.75 million in much needed CARES Act funding from the County of Orange, and it's specifically for Huntington Beach businesses. And we were able to quickly distribute over 700 small business grants by the end of the year. So this is currently not open, but we'll talk a little bit later about the new relief programs that we have coming up. But we're proud to be able to get that much money out in such short order. Next, the 1HB Business Support Campaign was launched in the summer of last year and provided support to our local small businesses by offering an opportunity for the Huntington Beach community to donate or to purchase 1HB merchandise, shirts, sweatshirts, hats, yard sign. I was able to get some merchandise too. I sported around in the office, so I'm excited to be able to support our small businesses. I'm proud to say that we received over $100,000 in donations and sales proceeds to distribute to over 20 businesses here in Huntington Beach. So this campaign is still ongoing. So if you'd like to donate or if you'd like to purchase 1HB merchandise, you can still visit our website at 1hb.org. Next are temporary emergency use permits and Surf City Stroll. June of last year, the City Council approved a program to allow temporary emergency use permits to provide businesses in Huntington Beach throughout the city an opportunity to safely operate outdoors. And I know this is super important because of all the restrictions that have been out there, so to keep everyone safe. But City Council also approved the Surf City Stroll, and It's a very unique outdoor dining and shopping experience in downtown. We close the second and third block of Main Street to vehicular traffic to be able to set up this program. And council also approved the second block to be closed through Labor Day to allow the opportunity for the businesses to operate. So if you haven't gone to downtown, please go down to Surf City Stroll. I encourage you to shop, dine downtown, support the Huntington Beach businesses. So next, the virtual plan check and inspections. And in response to COVID-19, the city's community development department has and is continuing to offer virtual plan check and inspection services to allow businesses and the community to continue to safely do business with us. I know that it's very, very important that our community and our businesses be able to still do business. So if you would like to find out more information about that, you can visit our city's website at huntingtonbeachca.gov for more information. For our water bill payments, in order to assist Huntington Beach residents, and this is with, I know, so much financial challenges with COVID, we have and are continuing to temporarily suspend our water disconnections for customers who are unable to pay their water bills at this time. So this program is continuing to move on forward until the state's emergency order is lifted. So our concessionaire rent holiday, as a result of the stay-at-home order last year, many of our city's concessionaires and at our beaches, parks, and public facilities were forced to close and were severely limited in their ability to operate. So in response, the City Council approved the rent abatement for concessionaires from March to July of last year, and then it was extended again from December of last year to this past February. And then finally, our business license and hotel tax deferral program, our council approved that last April, and it allows our businesses to defer payments to the end of June. So, you know, my hope is that these programs were able to provide some relief for Huntington Beach businesses during these very, very challenging times. I do look forward to the recovery. I'm very excited about the vaccine rollout. It's going really, really well. But I know it's still difficult for a lot of our businesses. So we do have additional funding for our small businesses that Diana from NDC is going to talk about in just a bit. Before she shares, I'm going to turn it back over to Mayor Carr.
Thank you. And thank you, Dale, for all that you do for our city. And all of these programs you can also find on HB Ready. If you need to know more about the small business grants, or if you need to know about the water bill or the reliefs, all the different programs that are going on in the city, you can just log on to hbready.com. So I do have one note. If you are watching on YouTube right now, to go ahead and hit refresh, because I got word that the chat feature is not working right now. So we do, for this next part, I'm sure you will have questions. So I do get to now welcome Diana Sasser, who will be guiding us on the Small Business Micro Grant Program and how businesses can apply for this and what they need to do to apply, how they're eligible for it, and how those funds will be distributed. So Diana, thank you so much for joining us this evening and sharing with us this exciting program to help our small businesses.
Thank you, Mayor Carr. And we're very excited to be working with you guys with the City of Huntington Beach. We've been working with many communities in California and Nevada and across the country, honestly, to help with various programs. So and I live right up the street in Long Beach, California. So I'm really excited to be working with some local communities to help give back to some small businesses and help them hopefully survive to the end of this, which is sounding like it's coming soon, thanks to all the hard work you guys are doing. So the COVID-19 micro business grant program is going to be opening up at the beginning of April 5th at 8 a.m. There's going to be $648,000 in funding available, and the business must have been negatively affected by COVID in order to apply, which honestly, that's going to be a lot of businesses. we have decided that these grants will be awarded by a lottery. Basically, a lottery will be held, and then your grant application will be reviewed to make sure it is complete. And if it is complete and you're fully eligible, you will be awarded the grant. The grants are going to be provided to provide reimbursement for operational costs related to COVID-19 restrictions. And I'll go into that in detail in a couple of slides. As I said, the application period will open on April 5th at 8 a.m. and it will close on April 12th at 5 p.m. So the big question is, what do you have to do to be eligible? So in order to be eligible, the business must employ at least 2 employees and up to 10 employees, and they must be full-time equivalent W-2 employees. The business must be independently owned and operated, and must have a current business license within the city of Huntington Beach. Again, it must have been negatively impacted by COVID-19. And then I will note here that businesses that have not received any funding from the city of Huntington Beach will be prioritized. That does not mean that if you received a grant the first round that you can't qualify. You absolutely can. We are just going to prioritize those that have not received funding yet. And then if there is sufficient funds, there will be funding available for those that have received grants in the past. In order to be eligible, you have to be in good standing with the city, following all applicable laws, acts, regulations, rules, and ordinances. Very simple stuff with that. You may not be owned or related to any of the individuals currently employed with or representing the city. So if you have a sister or brother that happens to work with the city, you are not eligible to apply for this. The principal office must be located within the city of Huntington Beach, and at least one officer must live in Orange County. Successful applicants must comply with all program requirements. And please note that home-based businesses are not eligible for these grants. So you must be in a commercial or industrial area. So I'm going to go through some of the guidelines that were put in place by the federal government. Each applicant must meet at least one of the following criteria. You have to be deemed non-essential and forced to close by COVID-19. You must have seen a decrease in sales or revenue of at least 25%, or you must have laid off at least one part-time or full-time employee. So if any of these if you meet any of these, you do qualify, as long as you qualify for all of the eligibility on the previous page. This will all also be listed on the City of Huntington Beach website, as well as throughout the application. There will be a lot of chances to make sure that you do qualify for this grant. So what can this grant be used for? So you can use it to reimburse for the following expenses. And it can be for expenses between December 31st of 2020 and June 30th of 2021. You can use it to pay for rent or leases. You can pay mortgage interest payments with it. You can pay your utility payments with it. You can reimburse yourself for purchase of personal protective equipment, or PPE as it's well known as, or other COVID-19 operational and safety expenses. Basically, if you have used other expenses and doesn't qualify under one of these top 4, you need to give us a description and we'll let you know if it qualifies. I will note that you'll see that the application period opens in April, but we can ask for reimbursement of expenses through June 30th. Please note that you can prepay certain expenses. So if you can show that you've prepaid rent, we can reimburse you for that. Now note that this is a maximum of $5,000 grant. So, don't just prepay rent if that causes you to go well over that $5,000. I'm just saying that we can reimburse you with this grant up to $5,000 or for $5,000, and it includes prepayment of rent. You can prepay your mortgage interest. You just have to be able to prove that you have prepaid these expenses. So the documentation to show that you've paid for these, and as well as that we just need to collect as well, you need to provide a copy of your city business license. It needs to be your current one. You need to provide proof of payment that you spent on these items. For instance, bank statements, receipts, canceled checks, credit card statements, something proving that you paid for these costs. For instance, we do have samples of all of these items on the city website. There is a do's and don'ts PDF included on the website. Please refer to that. It will give you great examples of what we're looking for. Basically, if you're asking for reimbursement of rent or lease, you need to provide a copy of your lease agreement. You need to provide a copy of your landlord statement or rent bill. If your landlord has not provided that to you, reach out to them, ask them for that. I'm sure they can provide that to you. And then proof of payment from the bank, something showing that you actually did pay that. Payroll, you need to provide a payroll registry summary or some kind of thing, something showing that you paid payroll and then proof that you paid it. PPE, an invoice or itemized receipt, proof of payment from the bank. And then of course, utilities, you want to get a copy of your utility bill and again, proof of that payment. So I know this is a lot of information. So like I said, there is a website available and it's on the last page of this. Make sure you take that down. It does have samples of all of these items. Just so you know, this is not the only webinar that we will have. We will have a second webinar and that will have instructions on how to apply, what's going to be doing that. And then once we have everything done, we will also be providing a link so you can learn how to sign up for the application. So the second webinar is this coming Monday on March 22nd at 2 p.m. There is a link to the webinar on the next page. Sorry, I'm skipping around. But the link, please register, but you can register all the way up until the time and just join. It doesn't require that you had to pre-register for a certain time period prior. So feel free to register even after it starts just to get access. So it's on March 22nd at 2 p.m. and it will be on how to apply. We will give you samples of what the application will look like so you can know, and also samples of what we're asking for to be uploaded. On April 5th, as I stated, the application portal will open at 8 a.m. On April 12th, it will close at 5 p.m. And then we have not yet determined a lottery event when it will be, but it'll probably be that week of the 12th. We will have to do a couple of items that week. It also depends on how many applications we get. So the more applications we get, the more likely we have to do the lottery. So please apply. As I said, the next page just shows you, again, the link to the registration. And I think now I had to hand back to Mayor Carr. Question and answer.
Well, now we'll open it up for Q&A, but I actually have a couple of questions before we get to the Q&A. Is if, you know, there is a lot of information about this and we have a telephone number. So can I just call before I even apply? Because maybe I don't want to go through all the paperwork and find out that at the end of it, I'm not eligible. So, I mean, is that an option that we can do before April 5th?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Definitely use this phone number to contact my colleague, Brittany Ramirez, is ready to answer all the questions. She's received one phone call so far, so she's ready to receive many more, as well as if you don't have time to call, because, you know, business hours can be very complicated for small businesses. Feel free to send an email, set up a time to talk with Brittany. And also Brittany speaks fluent Spanish. So don't feel like you can't call if you speak Spanish. Brittany is going to be able to help you. She's wonderful.
So could Brittany also help people fill out the application?
She can probably give them directions, but I'm not sure, you know, it's hard. I would say you can add a collaborator onto your application. There's an ability to have somebody that you know that can help you go through the paperwork. That's probably going to be easier than having Brittany help you because she can't see everything. It's going to be on the phone. She can help answer questions, but I would recommend that if you have a friend or somebody that is a little bit more experienced, or have partnered with the Small Business Development Center before, definitely reach out to them and say, I just want to make sure my paperwork's right. Brittany can help, if you send her samples, like, does this look right? She can give you feedback. Yes.
Okay.
And it's not just Brittany. Brittany is here to answer those questions, but she's the one that gets these, but she can forward them to me, as well as our other colleague, Carl Spickner, as well as Amanda Floyd. There is a team over here. It's not just one person. It's not even just two. There is at least 4 of us, if not more, if we need it. So.
Right. Well, we want to get this money out to the local businesses. So if they have any questions or they need some help, it's good to know that there's resources available to guide them through the process. One of the questions that I get asked a lot are, what about nonprofits? Can nonprofits apply for this?
I'm going to look at Dale and say, I don't think so. I believe that this is for for-profit businesses. Is that correct? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Dale, so that was our intention.
Right.
Yes, yeah. So currently, that was our intention is not to include nonprofits in this round.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
I will say that there is some resources out there for nonprofits, but I know it's been a struggle for some nonprofits to find resources. Yes,
it has, and the big one that we hear all the time too, obviously, is rent. It's really difficult, especially if they've had to be closed for the last couple of months. If it's a small gym, boutique gym of some sort, and they've had to be closed, it's been really difficult. So I'm going to go now to our questions here. Okay, so we've got one of the questions, and this kind of goes along with the nonprofit. So maybe Dale, you want to kind of jump in a little bit. What about a home-based business? We saw that maybe they're not eligible. So was there any reason why we didn't include a home-based business at this time?
So the reason why we didn't include them in the first round and also in this round is typically they won't have the basic expenses of rents that a lot of the businesses that would have fixed expenses if they're operating in a commercial or industrial area. So that's kind of the rationale that we used in excluding them in the first round and also in this round.
And I'll add to that too, that we want to support all our businesses in the nonprofit community, but with such limited resources, I think you start trying to target those that are initially most in need. So we started with our small business community that makes up roughly 70% of all of the businesses located in Huntington Beach, have 10 employees or less. What we're also doing at the city, though, because we do realize home-based businesses and nonprofits are also in need of support. Both the state of California and the federal government have recently approved stimulus measures that do have funding embedded in both of those pieces of legislation that home-based businesses and nonprofits are eligible for. We're in the process of consolidating all that information in terms of how to access funding as those funding programs become available. And all that information will be posted on the hbready.com website. So there is more help coming. This program is targeted at small businesses, but again, with the amount of support that the state and federal government are providing, there's other avenues for those organizations in need to access funding. We'll make sure we try to make that as easy to access as possible.
Great. So the question I have is probably for Diana. What about a small business that has a bunch of part-time employees? Maybe not. How do you count for up to 10 full-time employees? What's the math on that?
That is a very good question. So I think what is considered a full-time employee by the state of California is 30 hours, I think. And so if they have a bunch of part-time employees and say they work 10 hours each, then 3 employees would take it to make a full-time equivalent employee. If it was 40 hours, and we can verify this information, make sure, and we can, Dale, maybe what we do is on the website include a little table on how to calculate your full-time equivalent employees. I can have my team put that together, and we'll get that to you guys so that they can have that information. Because I do think that is, a question that many people will have is, I've got I think I have 10 FTEs, but I have 20 employees. Is it really 10 FTEs? And yes, it could very easily be 20 employees equal 10 FTEs. So.
Well, we've seen so many people's work hours get reduced during this time period where they may have been a full-time employee a year ago, but now they're only working part-time because the business is only 50% open. So I would imagine that there's going to be a lot of those types of questions on what constitutes a full-time employee. So let me just look at I'm asking all my own personal questions. I should say. We ask the questions that we have actually received. Okay. Do we need to show receipts for all reimbursable costs? So yeah. You do need to show after you receive the funds. Okay.
Before. They have to do it at application period. At the application time, they will have to provide copies of the receipts that they want reimbursement for.
Okay.
We're not going I know the first round, they asked for the receipts after. This time, we're asking for it ahead of time. So if you are asking for reimbursement for prepaid costs, so for costs that you are paying through June 30th, for instance, repaying rent, you need to prove that you prepaid that rent.
Okay. Somehow. So the next question I'm asked is, after, we don't know when the lottery is going to be, but we know it's going to be shortly after all the applications are in. Once we do the lottery, how long will it take to get the grant, and how long does it take to do all the paperwork after you find out that you're eligible for the grant?
So the paperwork will mostly be done at application. So they and on Monday during the how to apply, you will see that you'll be answering a lot of questions, you'll be certifying things, and you'll be providing copies of these documents that you're asking for reimbursement for at that time. Once we've done the lottery, we will have a list of applications that we need to go through to verify that the correct documentation has been provided. If the correct documentation has been provided, then we can move forward with award. And honestly, it's pretty straightforward. It's, we give it to the city for one final look, make sure the city is good with the approval. The city will say, yes, we will send them an agreement, a grant agreement to sign. It'll be an electronic signature. We'll also send them information so that we can wire the money to them, because NDC will also be providing the funds at the end of the day. Huntington Beach will be. We just will be the facilitator of the wires. So we'll be asking for that documentation. Once you've signed it and provided that documentation, then we will send it to the city for final signature. And then once we have the funds in our hands, we'll send the funding within a day of getting the money from the city of Huntington Beach. Okay. So it's a pretty quick turnaround. The biggest thing is to make sure that all of the documents, the way you can have things done quicker is if you provide the right documents from the get-go.
Okay.
If you have to go back and forth and for the right documents, it will create, a lag on timing and stuff. Right. I will say that we will probably have a limited time frame for you to turn around and get the information to us. So that's why we're having these webinars to let you know these are the things we're going to want. That's why there's samples of documents up on the website. Definitely take advantage of that. Mm-hmm. I will say to upload these documents, you need to be able to provide it in PDF format. You need to be able to provide that or a JPEG, JPG, or JPEG. You can take a picture on your phone and upload it to the website. It is a very phone-friendly, computer-friendly application. So you'll be able to fill it all out. You can do it on your phone. It's actually really nice. Mm-hmm. So even signing, you can type. We've done it where you're going to just type in your name for your typed signature to certify things. So just wanted to let you guys know, yes, it should be pretty simple, but you can take a picture on your phone and upload it. Make sure it's clear. If it's all blurry, we need to be able to read it for the documentation, but definitely that was a good question. That's how we're handling things.
And Diana, I'd also want to just emphasize too, this is for any costs incurred since January 1st of this year, correct? So,
December 31st of last year, but
December
yeah.
31st, December 31st of 2020, but any rent costs, mortgage interest payments, utility costs, anything that, any cost you incurred over the course of the last 3.5 months are eligible expenses. So part of our hope is a lot of these costs have already been paid, and that through this program, businesses that are struggling can get reimbursed for some of those costs really quickly.
Correct.
So one of the questions that I've been asked by smaller businesses downtown that are maybe relatively new, how do they prove that they've been impacted by COVID if, let's say, they opened up 2 months before COVID hit? And I've heard this from a couple of downtown businesses where they were like, well, the year over year is difficult to show because they weren't open for maybe all of 2019. So is there something that we can do for those types of businesses?
So there is not, there's not a requirement for them to have been open prior to COVID. And we're not asking for financial statements. We're asking for them to self-certify that they've been impacted by COVID. There will be a certification page, but they are not being asked to show financials. We are asking for people to be honest, and remember that this money is to help people that have been negatively impacted. So if you've been negatively impacted, definitely apply. If you haven't, please let this money go to the people that have. I think that's the most important thing to remember.
Okay, so we just want to really remind people to go to hbready.com/biz-grants. And as Diana said, we will have all of this information up so that you can learn more about the micro grant program. And then Oliver, I have just a couple of questions for you, so you're not off the hook yet. One of the questions is, when do you think we will be going into the orange tier?
That is a great question. And I can speculate if that, and actually certify that if all of our current trends hold, that if we follow the 3 W's and people keep getting vaccinated, if all of the data that we've been seeing continues moving ahead, we'll likely be moving into the orange tier in the next 3 to 4 weeks. Some of it is a little bit uncertain because the state's put in a couple of new requirements that could accelerate that and move it a little faster. We don't know if the state will say, yes, let's move on those yet. One of the new requirements is if the hardest hit communities in California, if we hit 4 million vaccinations in those most impacted neighborhoods, the reopenings can occur more quickly and we'd move a little bit faster, maybe a week or two faster. If we don't hit 4 million, then based on all the advanced data tracking that we're seeing, we have teams that are looking at all of the data as it comes in daily on COVID infection rates and testing positivity rates. If all the trends we're seeing hold, the worst case scenario would be that in 3 to 4 weeks, we'll likely be moving into orange.
Okay, well, I know everybody's eager to continue to progress and get into the orange and yellow tier, and then hopefully there's a green tier somewhere as well. So I think that's pretty exciting. And the last question I have is also for you, Oliver. Can my employees and I get the vaccine even if we don't have insurance?
That's a great question, and the answer is yes, overwhelming 100% yes. One of the elements of the federal government response is all of the vaccines that are being distributed now have been prepaid for by the federal government. If you don't have insurance, it doesn't matter. You can sign up through hbready.com/vaccine. We have links to every location where you can get the vaccine. And through all of those locations, you can still get vaccinated even if you don't have insurance.
Yep. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you to Diana for spending your evening with us and explaining how to apply for this small business micro grant program. I know we're all eager to get that money distributed to our small businesses here in Huntington Beach. And thank you, Mr. Chi, for the update on COVID-19 and how to get the vaccine. thank you, Dale, to our Chief Financial Officer. We don't get to spend a whole lot of time with you on these town halls, so it's kind of nice to bring you into this as well. So I want to thank everybody, and as always, these videos are uploaded onto YouTube so that you can go back and take a look at it. But again, we just really want everybody to go to hbready.com for information on the vaccines, for information on the business grants, or if you're looking for some sort of relief for your business that is not maybe you're not interested in the grant, but some other programs that we have done in the city, they're all right there on hbready.com. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you to my special guests for joining me as well. And I hope everybody has a great holiday. Spring break is right around the corner. And in the meantime, practice those W's.